Want to transition over to Conor on this, where it's Conor madness. Everybody's got Conor's name in his mouth. Anderson Silva came out with, and I didn't know this. I've been licking my wounds for a couple days. He's actually the underdog in the Brunson fight. And Anderson's come out and said, hey, before I retire, I want to fight Conor. And Conor's said, fook 'em all. I'll fight anybody as long as the numbers are right, get the numbers right. Man, Conor, listen, they already took both your belts away, whether you believe it or not. Okay. You're woofing about Floyd Mayweather. Hey, daddy, that fight's not going to happen. So the longer you're out there, brother, the less people are going to, if you think you're irreplaceable, you're not, man. You're not.
Yeah, so you finished that in a different way than I thought you would. I thought you were going to stay on Conor and Anderson. Now, I'll go a step further for you. Did you know Anderson, he wants to do it at 170. He's willing to go down to 170. And he did a weight cut and got down to like 176 or something, or 174. Now, I don't believe him that he actually did that. There would be no sense to pass up the weight that he's got to make against Brunson. That wouldn't make any kind of sense, but this is the claim that he's making. And I'll tell you this, if Anderson wants that fight and is willing to get to 170, he's going to get that fight. I'll also remind you of one other thing. Anderson's last fight, Anderson used to fight at 170. People don't know that. Anderson's last fight before he got into the UFC was at 175. He was in a tournament with Okami and Shields. I think Carlos Condit might have been in that. I have to look up the tournament. But the bottom line was that was his competition prior to the UFC, and the weight that he made was 175. When he came to the UFC, he got signed for 180. They didn't need a 170-pound star. They had Matt Hughes at the time. Koscheck was an up-and-comer. Fitch was starting to make his splash. So they signed him at 185, but people do forget that. Anderson could get to 170, is willing to get to 170, and so many people, when Anderson had made that comment, overlooked it, thought he was kidding, thought he wasn't being serious. I'm on the other side of it. I think he's very serious. I think he would get to 170, and Conor would certainly take that fight. And that would do big numbers regardless of the outcome of the Brunson fight. And if Anderson's at the end of his lease, he may be. He may be towards the end of his road. I mean, let's see what happens here. But I'll make this point to you. That's still a marketable and drawable fight, even if a guy's on his way out. Because it's like, okay, great, then we're going to hand the torch to Conor fully. And there's something to sell there. And Conor never commented on it. I think Conor also was of the school of, oh, well, that isn't going to happen, and everybody's trying to use my name. I think Anderson was being quite serious when he said it. Claimed that he had made a weight cut, which I don't believe, but you get the point. And whether he did or not, that is his real weight. He's about a 180-pounder. That weight class just doesn't exist, so he had to choose where he went, and he ended up all the way at 205. He had a little help, as USADA eventually showed us, but he could go 170. He's very, very lean.
There was a time, Randy and Dana, they've been at war, the pissing match the last several years. But there was a time where Dana said, listen, I've never said no to that guy. I've never said no to Randy. Want to fight for the title, want to do this, want to do that, and Randy deserved that. I believe that if Anderson tells Dana that he wants to do something, I think Dana offers him that same kind of respect as well. I'd love to see it. I do mention to Conor, hey man, you're the biggest thing since sliced bread, but somebody's making new bread every day. So, don't keep the star from to continue to rise because you've lost your goddamn mind. You're not fighting Floyd Mayweather. Let's come back to the cage and make some money.
Now, aren't you out of bounds on that? I mean, I feel like maybe you're marking out a little bit. Here's what I'm hearing about Conor, and Conor plays everything right in the media. I see so many people that try to critique him, and you're right. He could easily stub his toe. However, I will offer you this. What I hear behind the scenes is that he's very easy to deal with. If you want to get a deal done and you want to get a fight or a contract, that he's very easy to deal with. That he comes out and says, I demanded this and I got it. And I got $10 million or $20 million or whatever some of his claims are. But that behind the scenes, he's not. What I do hear is that he's a man of his word. Now, everybody changes eventually. Everybody pushes back and has their hard moments. And I don't propose that he isn't a guy that understands his worth and goes out there and tries to get it a little bit. But as long as Joel, here's something that you need to consider, and so does everybody else. As long as Conor is easy to deal with in the office, he can go out and do whatever craziness he wants to do in the media. And I feel like you're saying, like, hey, Conor's not going to fight. Conor was pretty straight up. I thought after the Eddie fight, he said, look, my girlfriend's pregnant. I'm taking my oars out of the water a little bit until the baby comes. And for whatever reason that he needed to be there while she's pregnant. But he did tell everybody. He did disclose it. They did the interim championship, or getting ready to. I mean, everybody kind of knew the score. He's not a guy that's gone back on his word. Some people didn't like his words. Some people didn't want him to take a break because he is the star and face of the company and champion 2 different divisions. Some people didn't like that. But as long as he's a man of his word and he does disclose ahead of time what his intentions are, I don't see any problem there. Now, if he starts to push back and huff and puff, it is a part of his youth. You know, some guys weren't around when Andrei Arlovsky was created, and it's the finest example, and it's really the only one you need to know about the business. The business at that time ran off of 2 people. Now, I'm going back to 2005, but it ran off of 2 people, Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz. Now, Chuck Liddell was around, but for whatever reason, Chuck was not a star. Chuck's star was one of the slowest to rise ever. Once it finally did, he's one of the biggest stars ever. But it was a very, very slow rise, and nobody could figure out why Chuck wouldn't get over. I can remember the time when him having a mohawk was weird. It was really weird. I also remember the time when kids started putting their hair in mohawk on Halloween and going as Chuck Liddell. Eventually it became a cool thing. Conor went through that same thing more recently.